All right, everyone. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. So, the next Go show we're going to study is Reply to Hoshina Goro Taro. But before I get into it, I want to give you a little analogy um, that I think will apply to all your studies in Buddhism, but it's certainly what Nichiren is talking about um, in this letter. So, I'm going to reference this video when I do this first video for that letter. That all makes sense. So I'm recording this first. I'm going to call this the fountain analogy. Now, most of you, especially if you're my age, remember hearing at one point or another growing up the fountain story or analogy, whereby some number of people, usually 10, um, are dispatched at different times of the day to go walk through a park and wait at the assemble later. And 10 people walk through the park and they witness, but they're not specifically told to witness, this water fountain. Okay? So they all get together later, and then the interrogator or experimenter, whatever, goes to each one of them one at a time and asks them about the fountain. And some of them remember the fountain with incredible precision and say it has 3 tiers. Others say it has 2 tiers. Others say it's just a waterfall. Some barely remember it at all. Oh, right, I remember walking by something. I guess I thought maybe it was a statue. Anyway, all 10 of them have a different recollection of the same exact fountain. So this is a popular illustration of how we experience the world around us and how we all have our own unique version of events being just our life, moment to moment, right? So I want to take that analogy a little bit further. And I think this is where it will help you more deeply understand what Shakyamuni Buddha taught and made reference to several times in different ways when he spoke about um, his students not adhering or worshiping or finding resolve in Buddha himself, the person, and he even admonished them, like in the Lankavatara Sutra, not to get so hung up on the words that he spoke, because all of it is an expedient means to describe a method and to understand a profound meaning to life and how our minds perceive it. In fact, Buddhism is about learning that mental perceptive lens that we each individually walk through and purify it or cleanse it or achieve clarity, somehow get beyond that um, facade of the world we think we're in, uh, and see clearly the true nature of all things, all life, all material. Um, so it's a difficult thing, as you hear me struggling with words, to put that point across, because even as you all of you listen to my words, you all have different impressions of exactly what it is I'm saying, and that's the point of the fountain analogy. Because you could take those same 10 people who all experience the fountain differently, maybe even the park and so forth, but just the fountain, and we could enroll them in a 3 month long intensive class on fountains to learn materials, to learn water flow, to learn um, maybe even specifically this fountain that they all saw differently, and explain to them every minute detail of what that fountain is, to the point they could design it or redesign it or manufacture it or um, build it for themselves. And at the end of that class, we could send each of those 10 people throughout the world, and they could be given the mission to teach others about this particular fountain that they now are expert in. Do you see how this applies to the Buddhist teachings and the way Buddhism spread throughout the world? This will make a lot, I think this will prepare you so that when I read this next Go show, um, you will have a lot of little aha moments. And go, I get that now. That's what I want for you. Um, because as these 10 people continue to teach about this one fountain, you've got to know that each of their students will hear them uniquely differently. Composite of their experience of their own life. It down to what water means to each of them. It's different. Now, what will happen is all of these teachers are expert after the 3 months long intensive class. But what makes them expert, and this is the real, I won't say trick, but the real fallacy that our human minds have is we attach and make distinctions and categorize and look for patterns. So at the end of this 3 month class, I'm backing up a little bit here. These 10 now experts are only experts in that they fully understand the fountain in their own unique way. Now, they may now, if you ask them about the same fountain, all have very similar, if not identical words, because what they've learned is a rhetoric. They've learned the words that they've attached to this particular fountain, and they all share that language, and they all sound identical. But in point of fact, they all understand the fountain and the reason they're studying it completely through their own lenses, their own life experience, you see? And then when they go out and teach that all over the world, their students will hear their lens because they're going to learn that rhetoric, the same rhetoric, but they're going to learn the cant and the nature of that rhetoric through the experience of that teacher, which will be somewhat different. And each of those students will do the same thing. So this is how teachings, if you're locked into the words or the person, can lead you astray, even though you feel you're doing a concerted effort to really learn this for yourself. Now, that might be a scary proposition, and it might imply to you, well, there's no way to know Buddhism, then why bother? But this is the key difference that Shakyamuni himself was impressing upon his students. Whatever path, see this, whatever path you learn this fountain in is the path for you, because you will come to the right conclusion. You will attain your Buddhahood. This is why I'm always saying to you, this is your Buddhahood. Only you can achieve it. Only you understand it. Only you can create it. You're not creating it from scratch. It's already there. You simply need to perceive it, like the fountain. So when you perceive it fully and become an expert, you are an expert in your Buddhahood, your enlightenment, your path, more accurately, to that awakening. That doesn't mean you can't possibly teach it to anyone else. Of course you can. But you have to allow latitude to not be the authoritarian, I know the only way to do this, but that within reason, you need to understand that those you teach it to will have their own lenses and need to come to it in their own way. And in this mixture, in this bodhisattva effort to share your Buddhahood, your aim to Buddhahood, your future, your present dedication and resolve to Buddhahood, to others, this is where Buddhist compassion comes from. You need to allow for others to come to these things their own way. Of course, you don't want them to stray too far. If they start to misinterpret and say things that are obviously incorrect, you must correct them. That is also compassion. It's like being a parent. You want to allow your child as much latitude to grow into the wonderful being that they will be and that they are, but you also want to protect them. And you want to keep them self validating and nurturing without endangering themselves in the world at large. It's very much a parental type of compassion. Does that make sense? So, brief video, just wanted to get that out there. The fountain analogy. It's of my own creation. It's built upon an old um, saying or story, if you will, used as a teaching tool in many different ways, much like Buddhism is. Buddhism, Shakyamuni, and every bodhisattva after him, including Nichiren, uses contemporary stories, stories of the day, stories of the current history, and uses them to illustrate meaning. This is why the words are important in order to dive into the concept. But as you dive in, you will see it and understand it in your own unique way. And that is what is important. That is where you will find meaning, because that's where it deeply relates to your path, your understanding of your own mind, your own environment, your world view, right? Okay, thanks for listening. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Now I'm going to get to recording the actual ghost show that this refers to. Thanks. Bye.